Hey, all my family, friends, and followers. So, as you know, I usually start my videos off just a little different than this. But the video today deals with a tragic double homicide that occurred in the 80s and the subsequent hauntings that came from that. I'm sure that there are still a lot of people in Gatlinburg and the surrounding area who remember this tragic homicide, and I want to keep this as respectful as I can to the victims and to the victims' family. So, with that being said, welcome to Ghost of Tennessee and the haunted Rocky Top Village Inn. The Rocky Top Village Inn was purchased in 1979 by a couple named Felice and Boudleaux Bryant. You see, the couple was a songwriting duo, and over the years they had written many hits for artists such as Eddie Arnold, Buddy Holly, Jim Reeves, Roy Orbison, and Leo Sayer, just to name a few. But one time on a visit to Gatlinburg, the two would write probably their most iconic song of all, and what is now the Tennessee State song. They would write Rocky Top. As I said, in 1979, they would purchase the inn with no idea of what would happen years later. Well, you see, on September 13, 1986, things would change forever in Gatlinburg. Thousands of bikers had rolled into town, and just about every hotel was packed. But along with the bikers, four others would come to town. Kimberly Pelly, Tattoo Eddie Harris, Joseph DeMonica, and Rufus Dobie, who also went by Ashley Silvers, had just rolled into town as well. The four would spend the day walking around Gatlinburg and acting like normal tourists, but that night they needed a place to stay, and they decided on the Rocky Top Village Inn. 21-year-old Melissa Hill was the night clerk working the front desk when the four arrived. Kimberly Pelly would enter the front office, and a few moments later, her and Melissa would exit as Melissa was showing her a room. They would be joined by Eddie, and within a few moments, a scuffle was heard. Melissa's husband, who was a dispatcher, had been talking to her on and off during her shift. He had last spoken to her around 10:30, then when he tried to call back, there was no answer. Another man who had worked at the hotel had tried to get in touch with Kimberly, and when he couldn't, he called the night guard to go check. 36-year-old Troy Valentine would go to check on Melissa, and no one heard from him again. The other worker who had called him to go check on Melissa became worried, and he went and checked. When he arrived, he would find both victims and the murderers gone. Melissa had been stabbed multiple times and shot in the back of the head. And when Troy Valentine arrived, Kimberly Pelly had clubbed him in the head with his own flashlight, and he was then forced into the room where he was stabbed multiple times as well and shot between the eyes. The other worker would quickly call the police, and unfortunately, Melissa's husband was a dispatcher, and he heard the call come in. Shortly thereafter, the chief of police would give her husband the bad news. You see, in 1986, the population of Gatlinburg was around 1,400, and word quickly spread through the locals. Most of them were of the opinion that someone local could not have done this, and suspicion quickly turned to the bikers. But just 3 days later, in nearby Maggie Valley, North Carolina, a letter was left at a phone booth close to a nearby police station. The letter would give details that only the killers would know, and there was also a pocket knife that was left there that was Melissa's. With the letter and the pocket knife, the police soon solved the murders, and all four were convicted. According to the other three, Tattoo Eddie was the ringleader. In 1988, Tattoo Eddie would be sentenced to die, but in 2002 it was determined that he was mentally unstable and was then sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. Then, in March of 2015, Eddie would be killed in a fight in prison. And before the hotel was torn down, visitors had reported hearing screams coming from the rooms where the murders occurred. They've seen apparitions walking down the corridors, and guests had even claimed to see the spirit of Troy Valentine standing near a fountain in the back parking lot. As I said, the Rocky Top Village Inn has been demolished and replaced with a Courtyard Marriott. But even to this day, some visitors claim they still hear screams as if someone is in immense pain. And one visitor even claimed she took a picture of what looked like Melissa standing in front of the building. So let me know what you think, if you think it's still haunted by the spirits of the two that were murdered there. Hope you enjoyed it.